Firstly, timestamps are your friend. You may find that the section you're looking for is listed in the timestamps, and of course we will show the Nintendo Switch 1 as well as Switch 2 performance. Pokemon Legend ZA is finally here, the Legend series being perhaps our favourite on the platform. Despite some gameplay improvements for Scarlet and Violet, let's be honest, the launch was a bit of a disaster. So then this will serve as a performance review. We'll look at the visual quality on both Nintendo Switch 1 and 2, all of the options that you've got available to you as a player, and whether Lumio City is a visually impressive location or a literally flat backdrop within which to catch your Pokemon. If you enjoy this type of content, click some buttons and let me know, is this another Legend in the making, or are the fans going to freak out? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Let's kick off then. When you begin the game, you're given the option to create your own character. It feels like the creation process is getting less and less involved. You can choose from one of 8 different archetypes, with not a huge amount different between them, and then customize the head, involving changing a few options for the eyes, the eyebrows, but strangely there's no option to change your hairstyle. Is floppy hair or floppy hair? Those are the orders of the day, with not a great deal else to speak of. Freckles, eyebrow color. You're not going to be making a character that looks exactly as you want them to. The vast majority of your customization comes from in-game clothing that you'll gain throughout the main story as well as through side activities, which takes us into the game proper. The game starts out with you riding into Lumio City on a train, with a certain someone having made themselves home within your bag. Your experience is based out of Hotel Z, which is your base of operations. Your first and perhaps most important choice, at least initially, is which Pokemon you're going to have between Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig, as you find yourself sucked into the ZA Royale, a massive tournament that covers the whole of Lumio City that uses the titular Z all the way up to A as its ranking system, with the winner being granted their wish. The league itself is tracked through an app that you have on your Rotom, basically floating phone, and so you very quickly join Team MZ, trying to do exactly that. Now, as you'd expect, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition is running at 60 frames per second. That is quite consistent. You would hope that would be the case. The engine is old enough, and we saw similar with Scarlet and Violet after the patch they released, but you never know, do you? As well as this, load times are very fast, around 3 to 5 seconds for most transitions, and handheld, the performance is the same. In fact, I much prefer to play this in handheld running at 60 frames per second. That smaller scale does a lot to hide some of the misgivings when it comes to visuals. This is then where we get to the part of the review where we change tone a little. Now, the Nintendo Switch 1 edition of the game, it really doesn't look great. Distant textures take a long time to load in. Sometimes you'll reach a new area and you'll see in the background a completely missing texture for a number of seconds before it gradually loads in. And there's a strange over-sharpened look to the Nintendo Switch 1 build, which comes hand in hand with the performance differences. You didn't expect it to run at 60 frames per second. It doesn't. 30 is the target here, but due in part to the lower resolution, you get much more aliasing and stepping on the edges of straight lines. Texture resolution takes a big hit as well, to the point where some textures look the completely wrong resolution, and that likely is what's happening. I noticed it a little on Switch 2. Certain things like the side of this chair, you could see that the texture was almost like tessellated. It didn't look right, but the cobblestones on Switch 1 and the ground, it looks that they've dropped the texture resolution so far that you can actually see the stepping within it. It's really not a good look. And look, I get it, it's the Switch 1 edition. It's so noticeable if you've been playing Switch 2 to Switch 1. If you'd started the game on Switch 1, you may not notice nearly as much. And I will say, in handheld mode, it looks worlds better. It doesn't have that strange sharp look, it actually looks quite good. And the 30 FPS, still noticeable, and you will still see a couple of drops in performance. It's just more forgiving when played like that. Now back to the Switch 2, and they've clearly done quite a bit of work to optimize since the initial versions of the game. You can see corners that have been, let's say, rounded all across the board. Things like shadow resolution, even on the Nintendo Switch 2 version for the main characters, are far lower than in my opinion they need to be. the shadows around the base of the player's feet, and the environmental geometry, which consists of walls, buildings, towers. At a glance looks reasonable, but when you actually get closer, everything is flat. The moldings around windows, it's like the world before we had bump mapping. Before someone gets upset, I will say these things aren't affecting gameplay. There are a number of items and objects within the environment, things like bins, rubbish bags, there are old posters on the wall. They have tried to decorate things, but it feels like window dressing upon a reasonably bland world. The interior locations, like the inside of your hotel room, are actually surprisingly good. There's a lot of detail in there. You've got pictures, cupboards, little books placed upon the table. Yeah, it looks really nice. One area that does work well, and this is why the custom creation of your character, for me, is so strange, it's the other characters. So the other people in the world, those that you have to battle against, other trainers, there's a great amount of variety between them. It kind of makes it a little more strange that we don't have more customization of our own character. There are quite a few flashbacks as well to original games, old Game Boy games. You'll see some characters who are clearly designed to look more like something that came out of an anime or a Saturday morning cartoon. Sadly though, it's a bit superficial in that the animations don't really match the quality of those designs. They stand rigidly, staring into the distance. There's the occasional blink, but there is a woodenness to proceedings. Also, I think giving Az a tail that hangs between his legs and that's pink probably wasn't the best idea, I'm just saying. Texture resolution is a mixed bag depending on what platform you're playing on. Some textures are not good across the board, they just don't look great. There are other things like water effects which tend to use, or they used to back in older engines, different layered textures that pass over each other. The water in Lumio City is not very impressive, I have to say. You can clearly see where the textures collide, where this river is actually supposed to be flowing round the bend. Instead, you can see the misaligned texture, like a straight line. You shouldn't be able to see that at all. The same can be said for the Pokemon themselves. They're absolutely fine. No, they're not using any real visual technologies that we haven't seen for the last 30 years, but I don't really care. Let's be honest, Pokemon fans want them to look accurate and they want the game to run well. One thing that really annoyed me in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was I don't think there was a camera sensitivity option, or at least not when it originally came out. This time around, within the options, we can invert the X or Y axis separately, which is great. You can also have camera sensitivity all the way up to 5, which is almost fast enough. Definitely better than not having that as an option. The other controls though, there's no change in those unless you want to create your own presets. But you've also got moves like your dash ability, which can be a toggle, and you can roll as well. The controls themselves are actually really quite tight. They feel nice and responsive, and it has none of that lethargic, slow running that we have seen in the past, which is also handy because we have real-time active combat. Now back to the visuals. The city itself, I have mentioned, is a little flat looking. And look, I know this isn't related to gameplay, and in our full review, this only features in a small section, but that's really what this video is all about, the visuals and performance. And they've tried a different technique when it comes to optimizing performance. So we almost have a blind spot. The character, if they're looking the center of the screen, the engine's trying to keep those things visible. Sadly, when you go slightly off axis, things that are very close to you can disappear. So you can have people running around with their Pokemon and suddenly they'll disappear from your vision when they're just a few feet from you. Or if you rotate the camera, then they have completely disappeared even though they're right next to you and you see them reappear like ghosts. I'm not sure this was the best idea. I understand having things that aren't directly in your field of vision not render makes a lot of sense for performance, but there is a performance overhead here on Switch 2 that I don't think this was necessary. There has at least been some effort to make people feel like they're a tiny bit more alive. They will turn their heads and look at you as you go past, and they kind of track your progress as you walk past them. Scenery can also become semi-transparent if you're too close to it so that you can still see the main character. ZA has a day-night cycle of sorts that also plays into gameplay whereby battle zones pop up during the night, and going into those makes you fair game against other trainers. You can use your sneak move to get up behind them and attack their Pokemon, getting the upper hand to begin the battle. Other features include nearby player battles, which is cool, so you can just get your friend next to you and use the nearby play function to connect with them and fight your Pokemon together. You can use the internet as well to fight online, and you've also got link trade mode, so you can share a code and then trade Pokemon that way. So when it comes to the overall visuals and performance and initial gameplay impressions, it's kind of as expected from the previews that we saw, the side that you're going to care about if you're a Pokemon fan looks to be quite good, and I'm excited to bring you the full review. The side that you can literally see with your own eyes won't quite live up to some people's expectations, particularly if you are playing on the Nintendo Switch 1 build. Let me know down in the comments, is there a game that you're going to pick up? Is this one that you've been looking forward to? There is, gameplay-wise, a lot to like here. A thank you to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons, our members, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!